Today I'll be talking about the documentary Across the Ocean in a Work Week, shattering the transatlantic sailing record. It was directed by QB King, and the documentary tells the story of the Comanche and an elite navigator Stan Honey along with his crew of sailing all-stars. It recounts the Comanche's effort to beat the prestigious monohull transatlantic sailing record, sailing from New York to the southern tip of England. Throughout this documentary, specific modes were shown. These modes can be shown through Bill Nichols's quality of documentary. He puts forward 6 modes of representation that function like subgenres of the documentary film genre itself. We've got poetic, expository, participatory, observational, reflexive, and performative. This documentary focuses on the expository mode, which addresses the viewer directly with titles or voices that can propose a prospective advance on the argument or recount history, such as the boat beating the record. The viewer is told to recount directly how the Comanche boat shattered the transatlantic record. It adopted a voice of God, where the narrator is heard but never seen. This is done right from the start of the documentary, and throughout the documentary, the use of voice of authority commentary is utilised also by the skipper and the crew, providing a background of the boat, crew, and recapping what was happening throughout their journey. The audience receives information through the voice of God and authority with subtitles to emphasise location, speed of the boat, and history of previous competitions of the monohull itself, which provides context to what we as the viewers are watching. The editing of the documentary shows continuity and the spoken perspective of the narrator or crew members. With use of evidentiary editing, it ropes in images from past races to show how it has been dominating the world of professional sailing. It also uses footage of images that demonstrate the construction of the boat, thus to ensure an illustration of the perspective at which this documentary is coming from, and to give the trust that the viewer is showing that it's the real deal and not a fictitious documentary. Although it is an expository documentary, it has evidence of observational and direct documentation, where there is events unfolding in real time, such as a crew crossing the finish line and the use of crew using personalised cameras, documenting the trip along the ocean, along the transatlantic strip. The use of natural lighting and real location also put emphasis on the direct and observational documentation, and it is very driven during the middle and end part of the documentary. QB King's style of documentation is heavily focused on the expository mode. He collaborated with Land Rover for this project, and Land Rover being a performance-based company could have had a direct impact on his directing techniques. So there were shots from helicopters, shots within storms that can be seen as risk-taking and all add to the dramatic effect to encapsulate the magnitude of the task that is at hand for the crew. The use of personalised videos from the crew whilst on the ship with handheld cameras also puts into perspective what it is really like to be there on the boat, the hardships, the loneliness, and which is all too often described from the crew when out on the open ocean. His use of music within the film sets the scene for each stage of the expedition, with promising music being played at the start, followed by deeper, intensifying and dreary music throughout the storms and near the end, not knowing whether they would make it or not or beat the record. And lastly, finishing up with a more uplifting music, almost saying that this boat is the best, with a laid-back synthesised music. This creates a mode and tone for the viewer to help create a narrative structure with the introduction and complication, asking the viewer, will they make it in the time frame and beat the record? It is then resolved in the conclusion as they set the new world record. All of these techniques go back to being in an expository mode, showing how the Comanche is a performer and everyone being a part of it is part of the machine of its success. So in conclusion, Across the Ocean in a Work Week, directed by QB King, is a short documentary of the expository mode. This is illustrated by King's choice as the filmmaker to interact with the subjects, even though it is not shown, and the crew can be made out answering questions posed by the filmmaker, which is seen to inform and move the audience. The use of imagery and sound coincide with what is being narrated at the present moment, with images of construction, past victories, and the Comanche and real-time updates from the crew when they are on the journey across the transatlantic. Across the Ocean in a Work Week is a very compelling documentary and leaves you sitting in suspense every minute as to whether or not they would be able to break the record across the transatlantic. And as one person put it in the comments, which I feel really brought all the video together, he described, "This video wants to make me become a sailor." QB King definitely encapsulates the uniqueness and determination that is sailing, and it is a documentary I would recommend watching. Thank you.